Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's SAMPS webinar. We are delighted you've joined us. I'm Jasmine Gray, a member of the SAMPS Board of Directors, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. Before we get started with the main event, I just wanted to tell you a bit about SAMPS. Whoops. There we go. Sorry about that. SAMPS stands for Sales and Marketing Professionals in Science. We're an all-volunteer community, now nearly 5,000 members strong, dedicated to helping life science commercial professionals network, learn, and build a competitive advantage in the growth of their careers. If you're not yet a member, joining is quick, easy, and free at samps.org. Please invite colleagues and industry friends who'd benefit from our community. I would also like to highlight an upcoming networking event that SAMPS is proud to be co-hosting with LRIG. The event will be on June 24th in Boston, following LRIG's Neuroimmunology in Drug Discovery Forum. It will be a great opportunity to meet fellow life science sales and marketing professionals, share insights, and expand your network over light refreshments. Registration details will be on the samps.org website shortly. It's now my pleasure to introduce Jennifer Liberi-Middleton. She's a certified leadership coach and founder of Life Executives, where she and her team cater to life sciences sales professionals and customer-facing teams seeking to achieve peak performance and impact business outcomes in a highly competitive environment. Jennifer's career spans sales roles at Illumina, SomaLogic, Olink Proteomics, and most recently, she was the Global Director of Commercial Enablement and Learning at Quanterix. Her secret sauce has been her practical approach to excellence, transforming mindsets and skill sets to advance professional and business performance, and she'll be sharing some of those secrets today. Jennifer's talk is titled Unlocking Sustainable Success, the Power of Human-Centered Leadership Skills for Life Sciences Commercial Professionals. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping things. Jennifer has a couple of polling questions throughout the talk, which I encourage you to answer. She will also take questions at the end, so please use the Q&A feature on the bottom of your Zoom screen to pose a question. My colleague and fellow board member, Adam Smartshan, will help monitor your questions. We'll try to get to all of them, but if not, we'll come back to you offline. Note that this webinar is being recorded and the recording details will be shared with you through an email. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Jennifer.
All right, thank you, Jasmine. All right, so let's see here. I'm going to share my my presentation. And here we go. And if you can all let me know if you are able to see it.
All good.
All good. And you're seeing the full screen, yeah?
Yes, we are. Thanks, Jennifer.
All right, fantastic. Well, thank you. Thank you for the intro. Thank you, SAMPS, for inviting me here to speak. Well, hey, we're going to talk today all about success and sustaining your success. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of a story. I'm going to introduce you to Joe. Joe is a growth-driven professional. He's super smart, super talented. He knows his stuff. He's always on point, but he has just reached a place where success no longer feels sustainable. He's wondering how he's going to continue to move forward, how he's going to continue to make his number again, how he's going to continue to thrive. He's sort of like on that hamster wheel, right? Like, what's next? So he's only feeling as good as his last quarter. He's sort of losing momentum. How's he going to keep his head in the game? Not sure if this sounds familiar at all to you. But that's a little bit about Joe and Joe's story, but in reality, it's our story. It's about what's reality for you, for life science professionals, for sales professionals, for marketing professionals, for growth driven professionals, and for humans in general, right? This is just something that we all kind of face, right? At some point, no matter how successful, no matter how ambitious, capable, and driven you are, progress seems to slow, momentum fades, and sometimes we just feel stuck. We feel, frustrated because, what got us here isn't necessarily the thing that's going to get us to the next level. The problem isn't your ability to achieve success, it's more about how do you sustain it? How do you get to that next level? So I think you all know this, right? You're super bright, just like Joe. You're technical. You've got the skills. You know your products. You know how to sell. You know how to market, right? I think organizations and educational institutions have done a really great job of equipping you with those hard skills to do your job. But we need something different. What we need is leadership skills. We're not talking about the type of leadership skills that we typically think of when we're thinking about leadership. We're not talking about um, executive type of leadership or people leadership and what people think of when we think of leadership, but we're talking about human centered leadership skills. These are things like, communication, right? Effective communication. How do you influence? How do you become most effective in your role? How are you able to navigate challenges under any circumstances, right? We need to have the right mindset, right mindset to complement those strong skills that we already have. And the truth is that these leadership skills are required for success at every level. Every level. They're not optional, they're not extras, they're really essential for sustaining success. All right, so my hope for you today is to gain some insights about leadership and how important leadership is to driving your success. I want you to also think about some barriers or recognize some barriers that may be in the way of your success and to walk away with some practical strategies and small changes you can make to shift your trajectory. So make some notes where you see some opportunities as we go along. So, so let me just tell you a little bit more about Joe. So Joe was chugging along, doing his thing. He's going, he's trying, he's going to try to continue to be successful. He's on that hamster wheel. But then one day he was invited to this leadership workshop, right? And and here's what they told him. They told him everyone leads. Now, this is contradictory to what he traditionally knew about leadership. Um, he thought, leaders were executives. They were senior people, people with lots more experience than him. But no, everybody leads. Everyone that has the ability to influence, that's leadership. Leadership is influence. That's what it is. So you don't need to be in a traditional leadership role to lead. So leadership can be positive. You can lead with being in a position to lift others up, or you can lead negatively where you're perhaps bringing things down. Your leadership actually has an impact on those around you, and you could do it intentionally with consciousness or unintentionally, whether you realize it or not. And so the thing is that everybody leads, right? So what's really important to know is that we need to be able to lead ourselves effectively before we can lead others effectively. So the question is not, do you lead? Because everybody leads, but the question is, how well do you lead? So for you note takers, that might be something you want to jot down. How well do you lead? All right. So you might be thinking, well, what does leadership have to do with my success? It has everything to do with your success. It impacts how how you show up, that how you show up individually, and the impact that it has on others as well. So to help you understand this, I'm going to introduce you to this visual, um, and I want you to consider this wave here, this water line, as the surface. And we, as humans, we are either above the surface or below the surface at any point in time, right? So, kind of as we go throughout our day, we bounce above the surface and below the surface in response to our situation, our circumstances, things that happen, things around us. All right. So, the things that limit our success are things that are going on that pull us below the surface. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. All right, so what is below the surface? These are things that really limit our potential. These are thought patterns, behaviors, old ways of thinking, and they don't necessarily serve us anymore. So, generally speaking, when we are hanging out below the surface, we are closed, we're tend to be defensive, we're committed to being right, right? There's a lot of fear going on behind the surface, below the surface, right? We tend to blame others. There's a lot of coping and rationalizing. There's a lot of excuses, right? People tend not to take accountability, and instead of seeing opportunities, they see problems and obstacles, right? Is this starting to sound a little bit familiar? Have you all seen this? And so when people are hanging out below the surface in response to situations and circumstances, they tend to get attached to a particular outcome, rather than, I'm going to explain that as we go in an upcoming slide, but just kind of put a pin in that. When we're below the surface there, we can't differentiate between what is fact and what is story. What is the story that we're telling ourselves, right? These are things like assumptions that we make. These are limiting beliefs. These are things like interpretations, right? Because we, as humans, we tend not to see the world as it is, but we see it as we are, right? So if you look at this image here, what do you see? Do you see, oh, well, let me just pause there. What do you see? I'm not going to give it away yet, right? All right. So do you see the duck or do you see the rabbit? And what's the right answer, right? So if you do some research on this, they're really, it's both. It's not necessarily a duck or a rabbit. It's both. The person that designed this. So the question is, to the idea is to find out what is the truth, right? When we're hanging out below the surface, we're a little bit foggy and can't necessarily see the truth. And when we are below the surface, we're stuck, right? We can't really take action. We've got this rumination going on. There's a lot of processing and just kind of hanging out there because we're just stuck. All right. So what you should know is that our brains are hardwired for survival. They're literally programmed to perceive a threat, right? And this is all grounded in neuroscience. And the thing is that when we see a threat or feel fear, there's a chemical cocktail, you probably all know this, that courses through our veins and will literally put us right below that surface, right? And this is designed for survival. This is nature. This is just what happens, right? But as modern day leaders, our brains cannot necessarily differentiate between a physical threat or a threat to our ego. We can't tell if we're being attacked by a bear, a physical threat, or if there's, just if we're just having a response to something that we didn't like and we feel like it's a threat to our ego. So, but when we are below that surface, when this fear puts us below the surface, it really limits our creativity, our innovation, our ability to collaborate and connect with other people. So we just feel stuck, and we're literally just trying to survive. We're in survival mode. But you should know this is a very, very normal response. So, so what do we do about that? So we ask ourselves, well, what is the truth? What is the truth here? Is this real or is it perceived? Okay. So what are the opportunities for us above the surface? So let's take a look at that. So what does that look like? When we are operating from a place above the surface, we are open, we're curious, we're committed to learning. We we no longer see problems and obstacles. We're looking more for opportunities. We take accountability. We're not blaming other people at this point. We're creative. We're innovative. We're listening actively to other people, meaning we're listening to understand, and we're able to take action. We're able to move forward. We are no longer stuck. Um, and what's really important to note here, in the game of leadership, it is all about the win-win. So if you're thinking about I'm winning and you're losing, that means there's a winner and a loser. And if there is a loser, that means no one wins, right? And so that's not a good place to be. So in the game of leadership, we want to look for that win-win. And what does that look like? So when you're operating from above the line, also, this is where we question our beliefs. We want to check in and make sure what's really true so that we're operating at the highest level that will help drive our success. All right. So how do we stay above the line? You're probably all asking, how do we stay above the surface, right? Sounds like a great place to be. Sign me up. So how do we do that? And the first step is checking in and saying, well, where am I? Having that awareness and assessing, well, where am I? Am I above the surface or am I below the surface? So one thing you might want to ask yourself is, how often am I below the surface? How often am I above the surface? And what does it look like when I'm below the surface? How do I know? So these are just things that you might want to ask yourself, check in. And once you're able to answer those questions for yourself and you get really good at it, then you can shift to something that serves you best, say a level that serves you best. So there's another framework I use that we lay right over top of this. And so, here it's simple. It's like below the surface, above the surface, but we can get a little bit more granular here and actually consciously choose a level or a surface that will serve us best. Once you're able to shift to a place that will serve you best and you get really good at that, then you'll be able to help others to do that as well. All right, with me? All right. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. And I'm going to introduce you to a cast of characters. But before I introduce you to this noisy cast of characters, I'm going to introduce you to this guy. He's the leader of the pack. He's noisy, obviously. He's the leader of the pack. He's a noisy guy. And by the way, these are stock photos, so it doesn't matter, guy, gal, whatever. This is humans in general. And this noisy individual here is a barrier. This is what we call internal barriers to our success. And there are many names for this individual. So you might recognize the names of inner critic, inner voice, inner child, the judge, the saboteur, but the name that you will probably recognize the most is the imposter, right? We've all heard of imposter syndrome. We've all probably felt it at some point, but that's this guy, right? He is keeping you And again, I keep saying he, it's a stock photo. It's all humans. But it has you playing small, right? When in reality, it's trying to keep you safe and protect you. But really, you've got something else you are meant to do, something else you are meant to be, right? So if, for example, your imposter or your judge or whatever you want to call it is saying to you, you're not smart enough, it might keep you quiet so you don't talk. So it's protecting you. So when you're quiet, no one will know that you're not smart. But in reality, you've got something to say. So it's hurting you because people don't get to hear your awesomeness. Right. So that's kind of how this works. It's designed to protect you. It was, formed when we were children based on a perceived threat or a real threat, but it doesn't necessarily serve us well. And so we have to find the parts that serve us best here in this imposter. So let me introduce you to his very, very noisy friends. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. What we call these friends overall, we call them saboteurs in general. This is from the positive intelligence. I don't know if any of you follow Shirzad Shamain and positive intelligence. He refers to these characters as saboteurs, and there are different types. And so while we have the judge and the imposter as the leader of the pack, he's got these friends. And so I think you'll appreciate this. I'm going to tell you a little bit about these friends. And let's see what resonates with you here. So we've got the controller. The controller takes charge. He takes control of situations. He micromanages. He doesn't like to delegate at all. And he's got this need to be right. Like, it's got to go my way. If I give this to anybody else, it's just not going to be good enough, right? I can't trust anyone. It's got to go my way. Then we have the hyperachiever. The hyperachiever is all about performance and success and relies on external validation for their self-worth. Okay, it's not necessarily about metrics and quota, but it's in promotions, but it's about other people telling them how great they are for their self-worth. Again, this is all subconscious running in the background. We may not even realize that it's happening, right? But this hyperachiever tends to get overworked. They're going to be totally stressed out because they're constantly chasing the next goal. Then we have the restless saboteur. This is like the never ending task doer, constantly focused on being busy, being distracted by lots of different things, seeking the next activity. But this is really a lot of distractions. As I said, it really can lead to burnout. Then we have the stickler. The stickler is all about perfection, as you can see here. I don't know how good it's showing up on your screen, but he's like cutting the lawn. It's got to be absolutely perfect. He seeks perfection, structure. He wants everything to go absolutely perfect. But what does that look like in teams and in work situations? It can create a lot of bottlenecks, right? Because everything's got to be just so. And this is where we want to see some progress sometimes over perfection. All right, and then we have the pleaser. The pleaser is constantly just trying to please other people, right? And devalues their own priorities. Again, this isn't saying you, this is saying these subconscious things that are kind of percolating in the back of your mind. Um, and so with the pleaser, they're constantly saying, yeah, I'll do that. Sure. Yeah, give it to me. I'll do it. Right. But then all of these things add up and then they end up really never getting done the work that they necessarily need to do because they're too worried about disappointing somebody else. All right. Then we have the hypervigilant. Hypervigilant is constantly worried about the dangers, right? What could go wrong? This leads to a lot of indecision, waiting. The hypervigilant is always just waiting for the shoe to drop. Like, oh no, what if, what if? All right, then we have the avoider. The avoider is steering clear of anything difficult. No difficult situations, no difficult tasks, no difficult conversations, no difficult decisions. Um, they just want to avoid. They want to avoid it all. Hence the name. But there's a lot of missed opportunities there for the avoider. And then there's the victim. Victim is just a lot of mental energy drain, like worrying about poor me. What about me? Um, yeah, nothing's going my way. There literally is like a black cloud over my head. All right. And then we have the hyper rational, which is always the hyper rational is the one that values logic and analysis more than relying on anything else, right? So it can kind of damage relationships. It can lose sight of the reality of people, right? So you can imagine if you're so super analytical and you're trying to interact with people like customers, um, you might miss cues. You might miss those cues from your customers. So, what is the problem with all of this is that we as humans do such an amazing job of being us, of using our technical skills, of using our product knowledge, of using our expertise, of using our hard skills. But the problem comes in when these saboteurs come in and hijack all of that. Right. So we want to be aware of that. We want to make sure we're on guard and we're ready to use our superpower so that these guys, we just kind of say, like, thanks, but see ya, take a back seat. All right. We good? All right. Let's do a poll. Adam, are we ready for a poll? All right. So the poll. So based on what you've heard so far about those saboteurs and the saboteur characteristics, what would you guess is most common among sales and marketing professionals? And really, when we say sales and marketing professionals, we're like thinking about growth driven professionals, high performance professionals. Let's just take a moment. Choose one. Choose one. There actually is no right or wrong answer here. There are some that are kind of rank at the top. I'm just curious to see what your thoughts are here. We'll just give it a few more seconds. And Adam, let me know when we've got a lot and we're ready to go. We still have votes coming in. All right. So, Adam, can the audience see the poll answers? So we got, let's see, we have avoider, controller, hyper rational, hyper vigilant, hyperachiever, stickler, and pleaser. Yes, very good. Hyperachiever number one. Excellent. So let me show you my slide and let's see what the answers are here. I'm going to close that out. Let's go to the next slide. Can you all see the next slide here? All right. So hyperachiever. Yeah, absolutely. Controller, strong desire to control and prevent chaos, right? Stickler, perfectionist, hyper rational, relying so much on analysis there, and the pleaser as well. Good job on that. We see lots of different characteristics here, depending on the person. Everybody's different, but just interesting to see. And yeah, not just for yourself, but just recognizing this in others in your environment kind of really helps you understand what's happening. All right, well, that was fun. We are going to shift gears again, and I am going to introduce you to another concept as we get closer to the end here. All right, we good? Everybody good? All right, fantastic. All right, so let's take this a step further. Now, bear with me on this. It's going to sound a little bit like word salad. So just bear with me. I'm going to need your attention to really get this. All right. So when we think about success, we think about what? We think about our goals, our aspirations, our achievements, outcomes, right? And those things are in the future, right? So those are in the future. So let's see, those are in the future. So the question is, or what happens is sometimes we get so focused on the future and the outcomes and the dreams and all of that that we miss what has to happen now, here in the present, that's actually going to get us to the goal and to the thing that we're actually trying to achieve. Okay. So I'm not saying don't focus on those goals, don't focus on those outcomes, but be more grounded, be more focused here and now on what actually has to happen to increase the likelihood of success for your goals and the outcomes to come to fruition in the future. Okay? With me? So then we say, okay, well, we're in the present. I got you. Okay. We're here, we're now, we're in the present. We're going to focus on what needs to happen. But what happens if one of those barriers shows up in the present? That's going to stand in your way from being successful. That's going to get in your way. Like you're going to have to, like a maze, you're going to have to maneuver through it. What are you going to do? Right? So we have to make sure that we are aware of that barrier, that thing that's in our way. We have to have awareness to it. And we have to say, okay, what do we need to do to shift this in the rearview mirror? Because it's like literally in my way right now. And if I'm going to the future, I can't have something in my way, right? So we, of course, there's things from our past that really serve us well. Awesome. If it's not serving you well and it is in your way, we need to shift it to the rearview mirror. Okay. All right. So we got the future. We're so focused on the goals and the outcomes. But in order to get there, we have to be present in the moment, focus on what actually needs to happen to get us to our goals. But yet, if there's something in our way in the present, it's a barrier, we need to move it to the rearview mirror. Okay, great. So then now we're in the present. Like, what do we do in the present? Well, picture you're behind the driver's wheel, right? You're in the driver's seat. You can see what's immediately in front of you. You can see what you have control over. You have control over your car. You have no control over the cars in front of you, right? You do what you need to do in the moment. That's going to get you to the place that you need to go to. I'm going to elaborate a little bit further. So what do you do in the moment to help you stay on track? Number one, what's your why? What's the reason you're doing what you're doing? How do you stay grounded in the purpose and have meaning aligned with the thing that you're doing? Like, why are you doing it if it doesn't make any sense? Why are you doing it if it doesn't have any meaning? And what's the what? What are those guiding principles and values that are going to help you stay on track to get to the goal that you want? Not going to get into those details today, but put a pin in that. What I am going to talk about is commitment, because what you are committed to in the moment really matters. Okay? So bear with me on this. Okay. Oftentimes people get attached to an outcome. I mentioned this earlier in the presentation. When we are attached to an outcome and it doesn't come to fruition, what happens? You're disappointed, you're upset, you're mad, you're angry. The list goes on and on and on. Why? Because you have no control. You're attached to something, and when it doesn't happen, you're going to be disappointed. You automatically set yourself up for failure. However, if you instead say to yourself, what can I be committed to that I do have control over, now you're setting yourself up for success. So if you have a goal, I didn't even make anything up here in this scenario, but let's just say you have a specific goal for the future. Instead of saying, I am attached to that goal and that goal's got to happen, you instead can say, I am committed to showing up and being prepared. I am, I am committed to delivering my best. I am committed to, whatever it is that you actually have control over in that moment. That is a very powerful shift that helps to contribute to your success. Focus on what you can be committed to rather than attached to. That increases your likelihood of success, and not only success, but making that more sustainable as you go forward. Okay. All right. So back to Joe. So Joe went through this leadership program, and here's what he learned. Hopefully it's some of the stuff you learned here today, right? How do we lead? We lead with intention. Your leadership matters. How you show up matters, right? Everyone leads either by choice or by default, and that makes a difference for your success. We want to lead above the surface. Joe learned to shift to leading above the surface because it's a really powerful and productive place to be. He learned that when he's being focused on what he's committed to in the present moment, if there's a barrier in his way, he's going to shift it to the rearview mirror so that he can stay the path, stay the course forward for his success. And rather than be attached to an outcome, now he's committed to the thing that he can be, that he actually has control over. So I'm curious, what is your story? What is the old story you've been telling yourself? What's holding you back from your fullest potential? And what's preventing you from staying fully committed? What are your goals? What's missing? What if the one thing that was missing, the one thing holding you back from your next level of success was just enhancing and elevating those human-centered leadership skills? I'm just curious what that would look like for you. All right. With that, I am going to thank you for your time. And I actually have a poll question actually before we wrap up, and then I'm going to take some questions. All right, so let's see. Poll question: which concept from today's session resonated most? Curious to see. This is a trick question because I didn't put none of the above, so. And of course, there's no right or wrong answer here. This is just food for thought for the group. And let's see. Above the surface, great. And I'm coming in second, internal barrier saboteurs, fantastic. So FYI, for those of you that haven't heard of it, Positive Intelligence, you can visit their website. They have a free assessment you can take and take a look at your saboteur. It's really fun. If you need any help with that, please let me know, but it's a freebie. Everyone leads, fantastic. Attachment versus commitment, wonderful. All right, well, you guys have been fantastic, and I am going to take this time to open it up for questions. And let's see, let me find the chat. It has disappeared. Let me stop sharing here. let's see. Q&A. Kat, let's see. What are some of the practical behavioral ways you found to help transition from below to above the surface? Okay, so Kat is asking, how do you transition from below the surface to above the surface? So great question. So number one is awareness, right? Where am I? Am I above or below? Okay, so if you recognize that you're below, very cool. Then you can say to yourself, how well is this serving me right now? Sometimes it serves us well, right? Sometimes we just kind of have to hang out there to figure out what's going on. Um, and then you can say, hey, is this serving me well? Great. If it is, then you hang out there a little longer. If not, what would serve me best in this moment? Then you can ask yourself that question. So when we are below the line, as I said, sometimes it does serve us well. And so for my science friends, you'll appreciate this. There's data. There's data below the surface, right? What is it? What is that data? What is it trying to tell you? What do you need to know? Get that data and then figure out how to move above the surface. That's the short answer, but fantastic question. Thanks, Kat. Let's see, David, what are some strategies to overcome imposter syndrome and figure out where you actually have more to offer than you realize? Yes, so great question. And that is really just figuring out number one, what is the message that imposters is saying to you, right? Because we're all different. It says a little something different to everybody else. So what is that message? And then asking ourselves, how true is it really, right? Sometimes, well, it serves us in some capacity, that imposter's trying to help us, but it doesn't always really help in the ways that we really want it to. So that's where we need to tap into our superpowers. So lots of opportunity to work on that, but it's really fun to see that, David, to see that transition in people.
Jennifer, there's another question. Given our target audience of sales and marketing professionals, what's the most common blind spot you see among this professional team?
I think it's just that, Jasmine. It's just blind spots, right? We're all different, and we all have different blind spots. So what is that, right? I think in this space we tend to get so focused on the technical skills, which we need, right? We need all this. We need the technical skills. We need to know the product. We need to know the customer. We need to know how to sell. We need to know how to market, right? But there's this real opportunity there to develop the human side, to figure out what's going on. There's nothing wrong with us. Let me just really make that clear. This is human nature, but it's just, how do we get better? How do we get out of our own way to achieve success? So I'm going to give you an example, because I failed to do this in another slide. I actually had a client of mine who experienced imposter syndrome, right? How it showed up was that he said, I have this problem with public speaking. So initially I thought, okay, he's got a fear of public speaking. It wasn't the case at all. This guy had the gift to gab, actually. Very technical, super bright. But we got into it. His problem was, he was like, who am I to deliver this technical information to this audience when I'm not the scientist that generated the data? I'm not the scientist in the lab. I'm just the messenger. I'm just the technical salesperson, right? And so that really got in his way, and he really was held back from doing his job. So it's just these simple mindset shifts that just help us get out of our own way and do the thing that we do best, and do it really well. It's just one small example.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that story. There's another question around coaching, and we've all heard the word coaching, and it's become a little bit of a buzzword these days. You hear it everywhere, from sales management to mentorship and even sports. But when it comes to professional coaching, it feels like there's a deeper value. perhaps less understood. And can you speak to how professional coaching is different, and maybe also um, explain how it's short-term actionable as well as maybe longer term?
Yeah. So, great question. So, coaching means different things to different people depending on the context that you're talking about. Professional coaching, the type of coaching that I do, the International Coach Federation, which is like the governing body for coaches, defines coaching as a thought-provoking and creative process between the coach and the coachee to help maximize your personal and professional potential, right? To help you get from point A to point B, to develop your goals, to be an accountability partner in the process. So it's very different from a lot of other coaching that we hear. It's different from like a sports coach. It's funny, I used to be a gymnastics coach, right? So I used to be like, oh, good job. Now try it again and do it like this. And we're not, as a professional coach, we're not telling people what to do. We believe you have the answers already within you. So we're just kind of holding that space and giving you the tools and the frameworks to help you come to some of these conclusions on your own. It's different from a mentorship where, as a mentor, you have been there and done that. You're showing people the ropes. It's different from a consultancy where a consultant, you're an expert. You're going to show up. You're going to tell people exactly what to do. It's different from therapy. Therapy tends to, figure things out. I don't, I don't look back. Everything is like looking forward. It's different from a friendship where a friend is going to tell you often what you want to hear. And I don't know for you, but a lot of times our friends mean well, and they give us advice, but sometimes we say, I don't think I'm really going to do that. A coach is a little bit different. It's different from sales coaching, where sales coaching, there's your manager, your leader helping you figure out how to work a deal, how to move an opportunity through the funnel, all of that sort of thing. So it's different. It helps you get from point A to point B, whatever that looks like for you. And as far as short term versus long term, um, it really gives you the tools and resources and frameworks to be able to use this over and over again to help you get out of your own way over and over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate your time and sharing your secret sauces with us.
Sure.
I learned so much about those hidden barriers below the surface and how fear can derail success. And I especially appreciated how you described what you become attached to versus what you commit to, that you have control over changing in the moment. So thank you for sharing all of that, and we really appreciate your time. Um, I'd like to invite our audience to please check the SAMPS.org website for upcoming webinars and networking events. We're looking forward to having you participate in a SAMPS event again soon, and everybody have a great day. Thank you.